What up, though? This is Knockouts in 3 Counts. But before we bring you another episode of Podcast Gold, let me tell you about the homies over at Michigan's Finest. Do you ever find yourself trying to get yourself together and thinking, man, this is going to be a great night, but I'm looking for that little extra something? Well, check out our friends at Michigan Finest. If you are into medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, concentrates, vapes, anything of that sort, Michigan's Finest has got you covered. And as you can see here, it's all easily done by their website. It's all curbside, and you'll be in and out in 2 minutes. And they're family owned and operated, so customer service is their number one goal. And now, since they are rocking with Knockouts in 3 Counts, use the code KO3MF. Yes, that's KO3MF. You get 10% off your entire order, but that does exclude featured items and items that are already on sale. But if you use that code, you're getting 10% off your items, and I promise you, either if you're looking for that big knockout or you're ready to hit the sheets for that 3 count, Michigan's Finest will get you together. Tell them Knockouts in 3 Counts sent you, and I promise you, you're going to be having a great night. Peace.
This is the Ring of Honor, a.k.a. Shane T, boy, the baddest champion you ever seen, boy.
This is Mr. Anderson.
This is good old JR Jim Ross, and you are listening.
You're listening to Knockouts in 3 Counts.
We got a new world champion!
That might be one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen in my life.
Knockouts in 3 Counts is the podcast, baby! It's the real deal, baby!
Knockouts in 3 Counts starts now.
You heard the man. Let's go. What up, though? This is Knockouts in 3 Counts, and man, did we have a hell of a weekend on tap this last weekend. I saw people get knocked out. I saw all kinds of shit. So it was a good weekend. So with that being said, I figured, it's been a while since we've had his return, and, my DMs are always open. So with that being said, it is last call in this bitch, as we've got the return of our buddy Chris Connor to talk some wrestling, MMA, boxing, and whatever the hell else we end up going off into. Chris, how the hell you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It was a wild Elimination Chamber. I gotta give W props. They did a great job. We got Bellator coming this weekend with a major fight, and in between we have some other stuff. So I'm excited about today's show.
J-Bone, how the fuck you feeling, dude? You were half dead.
I kicked out a little bit, not all the way there. We're about 2.5, but I'll be all right. Got vacation coming this weekend, man. So I'm gonna be okay. Let's just say that.
So let's just see if he learned anything from our last vacation. Drinking a 32-ounce margarita in 5 minutes ain't gonna help your baby bladder.
Look, man. Cool thing about this vacation, I got a golf course right out my back door when I walk out my room.
Oh, so you're just gonna piss out the window on the golf course? That's what you're telling me.
Look, don't judge me if you see me on the back nine drinking a margarita, all right, at 8 a.m. Mind your business, as I say. You know what I mean?
Where are you off to? Anywhere good?
Jealous.
I'll be in Orlando starting Friday to Wednesday. I'll be in Orlando.
Enjoy that weather. Hopefully it's nice down there for you.
Hope so.
But rolling in on this Tuesday, man, I'm about ready to be on to the show and get ready with this shit, because my Tuesday's been just fucking spiffy, boys. So let's just get on with the show at this point.
Some sarcasm.
Hey, bro, I feel it. Everybody who's watching, feel free to chime in and all that good stuff. Well, I figure we'll start on the pro wrestling end of side of things. And with that said, shout out to our sponsors, the State of Pro Wrestling. If you guys are fans of wrestling, check them out coming at you out of Minnesota. You never know where the hell they're going to end up showing up. Shout out to John and the guys over there. The links to their stuff are in the description. Make sure you check them out and show them some love. But before you do that, make sure you hit subscribe and the like button here. But with that being said, like Chris was saying, man, I mean, we had a lot of stuff going on in the pro wrestling end of things. We may as well start with Elimination Chamber. I mean, Chris, since you're the guest, I'll let you go first. What are your overall thoughts on Elimination Chamber as a whole? I'm hearing a lot of people saying things like, it might be one of the best lead-up shows they've had in a while, or at least the most the most attention around like a non-WrestleMania pay-per-view in quite a while. And I mean, if nothing else, dude, that crowd over there in Montreal was going fucking hard.
Oh, it was a great crowd. You can only say it was probably maybe like one really bad match of a whole thing, and ironically, that is Lesnar versus Lashley. But every other match you look at, it's like, okay, did it deliver? Yes. Was it action packed? Yes. Did it advance like storylines and stuff? Yes. And I get people who would love to have Sami Zayn as your WWE Universal Champion, but it's the right move. I get it. Sami Zayn, kudos to him. He has carried this whole storyline to become a main player in the last, I'd say, 4 or 5 months. But the money match is still, it's Cody Rhodes, it's Roman Reigns, and I think that match, the main event, was a perfect segment so that nobody looks bad. It leads up to something different, and it leads up to keeping Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and the Usos basically just in that main event scenario.
I agree, man. I have no argument there because that was the whole thing for me going into it, because I really wondered how this is going to play out with the fact that Sammy was so hot and it being in Montreal and all that, and what are you going to do and all this kind of stuff. I think, I'll even, to counteract your point with the Brock match, I mean, to be honest, there wasn't really anything that I didn't like on there. With the Brock match, I'm not mad at it because the way they finished it, at least, it leaves you open so that this can't be the last of what we're seeing with Brock. In reference to that and what we saw on Raw, everybody's like, do you really think it's going to be Brock and Omos? No, I think Omos is probably going to be part of a new look Hurt Business. And I think it'll still be Bobby and Brock at WrestleMania. J-Bone, what did you think of Elimination Chamber, bro?
Do you remember a while back when I tweeted out what the hell were you going to do with Omos now? And here we are matching up with Brock. Let's just say I'm still not interested in that. But Chamber in a whole, dude, honestly, that might have been the best Elimination Chamber pay-per-view I've ever seen. That from start to finish, just the build-up was big. It had that big fight feel, like a lot like the 97 Survivor Series, just the Montreal thing. You had Ariel Hewani in there, like made it a bigger deal. You know what I mean? It made it big. The fact that every match was great. I personally didn't care for the end of the Brock and Bobby, but whatever, we'll see what happens with that. But the Chamber matches were great. The outcomes were great. The Logan Paul thing I thought was a great touch. Montez Ford became a star that night. There really wasn't too many negatives on that show. It was all done the right way, man. It's really hard to look at that pay-per-view and say, this is not what we want, or this is boring, or this is bland going into WrestleMania, because that was from top to bottom a great pay-per-view, in my opinion.
And to spin off what you were saying in the beginning, Kyle, how like all the eyes and stuff were on it, and I seen a statistic come out. It was something like this is the most watched event that they've had for the Elimination Chamber. And then not only that, it was like something like 54% higher than any viewer rate they've ever had before. So it was some crazy statistic like that. And I was like, wow, like to your point, that storyline really drug in a ton of viewers and a ton of eyes. And it really was. It was all over Twitter throughout the weekend too, man. I mean, people were really blowing up about it and stuff. So you could tell it had a good impact. And what better way to have such an impact when you put on those kind of matches, like you were saying, Jordan, when every match, for the most part, at least ends up being looked at as a huge success, you know?
I couldn't agree more, dude. I mean, all in all, I thought it was a good show. And the good thing is with how the way they went into Raw and things like that, they also left it in a spot where now there's plenty of ways to go off of it. And I like the fact that they didn't do just right away Kevin and Sammy are all buddy again, because let's not forget, Sammy let them beat the dog shit out of Kevin Owens before he finally did come to his senses and help his homie. So I could totally see why, if I was Kevin Owens, why he might say the shit he did and saying, make sure you have your buddy Jay help you out. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes. I think I think we get the Usos versus Kevin and Sami at WrestleMania. I kind of feel like that's the move. That's the way it needs to go. But with that being said, I've also heard it said, what if it ended up being like, because of the Freebird rule kind of thing with the Usos, what happens if by some chance it ended up being, some other combination of Sami and maybe Jay versus two people from the bloodline? Because Jay, we still haven't seen come back around the bloodline yet. Hey, yo. I don't know, man. Again, this is what makes this so good, is at least that there's so many different ways you can go into it. And I have to say, out of the manias that I've been to out of state, I mean, obviously last year was special because of the whole thing with Stone Cold and all that. But that being said, like, as far as just like actually being intrigued as to what they're going to do in build of a WrestleMania that I've been to personally, I mean, this has got to be one of the best builds I've saw coming into one of the ones I've been going to. So I am thoroughly looking forward to it. Well, Chris, since you are the guest tonight, man, what were some of the standout matches for you, or standout superstars, whatever you want to do?
Oh, Sami Zayn by far. I mean, he has, because for a while we all thought, okay, he's just sort of he's going to be a bit character. He's going to be Miz 2.0. Not a bad role, but mid-card guy. And he, as he said, he got everybody to buy in. And, when you get Paul Heyman to buy in, because Heyman's the guy who basically runs the bloodline. He's the guy who, books for stuff, who, writes for stuff and makes sure that, okay, this is going to be stupid. You've gotten someplace. And so we're now talking about Sami Zayn as sort of, all right, well, why didn't he win a title? Well, should he have won a title? And that alone is a standout. I'd say the second, as you said, it's Montez Ford. I don't know what they're going to do with Street Profits. They don't have many good tag teams over at Raw, so it's like, okay, do you just have one tag team alone, or do you do anything here? And I'd say my third star probably of the whole batch was Asuka. They've reinvented her.
I was so glad to see her win, dude. Oh my God, when they got to the end of that, I'm like, man, please don't screw her over again. Like, I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that Asuka's been fucking overdue, bro. Like, she has not been anywhere near that belt since her and Charlotte had their run at WrestleMania 34, and that was like 5 years ago. Now you brought her back and have incorporated some of what we saw from Japan. I think that was great. I thought the way they did what they did on Raw last night, having her not even say anything when Bianca's in the ring, but just letting the mist just go down her teeth and shit, and she opens her mouth and all you see is blue. Like, I love shit like that, especially as a fan of people like the Great Muta and stuff like that. I completely agree. To go off of what you said about the 3 stars, Montez Ford definitely has been on the rise for a while, but I think last night cemented that. I think whenever and whatever they're going to do with the Street Profits, I think he's going to be just fine. I really feel like he's got the energy, he's got the charisma, he's a fucking hell of an athlete. And then again, we've seen it in the WWE a lot. Not that everybody loves that kind of thing, but you got to remember, you have, all these couples now. You have, as we saw in the WrestleMania commercial, you have Becky and Seth in there. You got Miz and Maryse in there. Let's not forget that you got, they've all got their significant others in there, dude. It's, him and Bianca can get at it with some people too. So I like that of it. I think Sami didn't get hurt at all by him losing. I think he's still going to be a big baby face. I feel like the route and the way to go personally is to have him and KO versus the Usos. We'll see how that plays out because we've still got a few more weeks. But again, I'm genuinely enjoying it with what they're doing. And so my 3 favorites may be the same as what you're saying, but I got to say, a lot of people are saying they enjoyed the women's chamber more than the men's. Me personally, I actually liked the men's chamber better. So
I think it was
J-Bone. Go ahead. My bad,
I
Chris.
was going to
Go ahead.
say, I think with the men's chamber, you sort of knew that it was always going to be Austin Theory winning the whole thing. That's the problem. Whereas the women's chamber is like, okay, was it going to, would they give it to, for returning, Corey Graves White, Corey Graves White, would they give it to Raquel Rodriguez? Would they try to rehash Liv Morgan? I mean, Carmella. That's what I meant. There were options. So he was like, okay, I have no idea who's going to win. So that gave you sort of like, okay, they went with Asuka. I have no problem with it. Whereas with the men's, you always thought they're not taking a title off of Austin Theory this close. If he's going to lose, going to be at WrestleMania to somebody, probably a John Cena, probably a big star coming back, but not at Elimination Chamber.
Is that where we're headed? Are we still seeing the John Cena thing still kind of unfold, or what? 'Cause I know there's been some little Easter eggs with him, but is that like a?
All I'm going to say is I wouldn't be mad at that at all. Like, I really would not be mad at that.
I mean, I think it'd be great.
People already compare him to him. I think it would be a great match for him to be able to. I think it'd be a great match for him to be able to kind of raise and elevate his star. I mean, let's not forget that the first championship that Cena won in WWE was the U.S. Championship. And hey, again, Austin Theory's past guest of the show for all of you guys who are new here. So make sure you go and check that shit out. We were hip before he was in WWE, motherfuckers. Check it out.
He's so easy to hate, dude. He's just got that hateable face, and it works. He does well with it, man.
Well, don't lie. You hate him because he looks like $1 million. That's what it is.
Well, yeah. I mean, come on. The guy's got it made. Like, geez, man.
I mean, my man's puts in work too, though, man. He said he just paints on his abs. Jesus. What the fuck?
But no, like where do we go with that though? Like, let's say he does face Cena. Like, if you're booking this thing, does he go over at Mania against Cena?
I mean, it'd be a great way
to put the stamp on him.
Yeah, it'd be a great way to build up a potential star. I mean, a ton of the current fan base and stuff, of course, they know who he is and stuff like that. But you bring in somebody like a Cena and you see some of the casual eyes start to watch that match a little closer, and they're expecting their guy to get over, and then all of a sudden, well, who's this guy that just beat Cena? Yeah, I could, could happen.
They're very desperate for star power. They are. I mean, they wanted The Rock. He can't make it. I don't think you could risk Austin a second time. I think, the older he gets, it's like, so Cena to me is like, he's the one guy they can bring in for star power.
Quick question, since you just made me think about it, and I was just watching it over the past weekend. Is there any way that this whole thing with The Rock, if it doesn't end up happening, right? If he truly doesn't end up showing up to WrestleMania, is it probably because he's trying to run XFL and he's too busy with that, and he's running around at all these different games back and forth? The property that he bought from WWE is the reason why he potentially can't perform for WWE. I just want to pose that question. It just popped in my head while he was mentioning that.
I mean, to say it's because of the XFL, I don't know, but I mean,
he was at every game over the last weekend, and there was 4 games in 2 days, and he was at all 4. So
no, I get it. No, I'm not saying that the XFL is not making him busy. What I'm saying is, though, maybe is it because of the XFL? Maybe not. But I mean, I think what it is he's so damn busy that he can't be in the shape that he wants to be in to get in the ring, or at least that's what it seems like signs point to from what we've seen. And I mean, I still wouldn't. Let's not forget that when The Rock was around before, when The Rock came around before and he had the match with Cena, even remember, they built that for a whole year. He showed up at WrestleMania and said, next year it's you and me at WrestleMania. So I wouldn't be shocked even if The Rock showed up and said, and let's say Roman Reigns wins at WrestleMania. Or, however you do it. I mean, however you do it, whether he wins or whether he loses. What if The Rock shows up the night after on Raw, the biggest Raw of the year, and says, you know what? next year at WrestleMania. You know, everybody thought I was coming this year, but see, you call yourself the tribal chief, but I am the one being the breadwinner over here doing X, Y, and Z. Now I've freed up my schedule. Now it's my time to take my time back at the head of the table. So, I mean, there's still ways that it could happen. Do I think it's going to happen at WrestleMania? Probably not. But I would not be shocked to see him show up and they try to do something like that before, because then at least that way it gives The Rock an ability to be able to have time. And, you know, if he books movies, he can say, look, I'm already pre-committed to this. But I could see that happening, but I don't think it's solely from the XFL.
Would you guys be okay with let's say Roman beats Cody, fireworks, all the stuff, you got the trademark thing comes on the screen and everything, we're going off the air, Roman's in the ring doing his celebrating, and The Rock's music hits right at the end of WrestleMania? No words, nothing. He's just a standoff and the show closes. Would you guys be okay with that?
Yeah, because then you got to see what the hell's going to happen.
Yeah, you got to have some if you're going to commit to something like that and do such a thing, you got to at least you got to show face, do a get the fans intrigued and stuff. You know,
well, that's why I said he could show up and go face to face with him.
Show all those fans that are, paid good money to show up in those seats, at least your face, you at least would have to show up if that was the situation. But go on, Chris. Sorry.
I was going to say, he's not coming, unfortunately. People forget he's right. The reason why he's not committed is because he has his own, I guess, Netflix new series called Red One with Chris Evans, J.K. Simmons. And he tweeted out, hey, back to work. And that was 2 weeks ago. They're still shooting. They're doing all this here. So I don't think he's going to be like, yep, I'm coming back here and everything. I think, to me, I think he's done. Because he's, you look at what's going on. You look at what happened with the whole debacle with Black Adam. I think he understands, like, I can't take any more time off. I got to be full gear into movies, full gear into my businesses. I'm done with wrestling, especially now when people forget he's 55 years old now. It's not like he's a spring chicken.
Damn, I didn't realize.
And the last time he was in the ring, he injured himself pretty badly, and that was how many years ago now?
3 years.
That
ago,
was
almost,
yeah. And I mean, and don't get me wrong. Here's the thing, and this is where you have to give WWE some credit. To be honest with you, even if The Rock doesn't show up, I mean, they've truly built a WrestleMania card that I'm genuinely interested to see what's going to happen. Like, I've said it for weeks on the show. Like, don't get me wrong. I've loved what I've seen with Sami Zayn and all that stuff. But in my opinion, the match that needs to happen at WrestleMania needs to be Cody and Roman. I mean, that's been the story since Cody came back. He had the big start, even though he had the tear of his pec. And I mean, I just feel like now you had him come back. He won the Rumble. I think that's the correct story because, I mean, even let's say hypothetically that Sami would have won the belt, I don't think any of us really saw him as a long-term champion. So, I mean, with that said, if there were going to be someone that you could take the belt off of Roman with, Cody, I think, would be a pretty good face of the company, at least even if it's only for a little while.
Yeah.
And plus, remember,
I don't see anybody else.
I was going to say, they're also trying to recruit a lot of these AEW guys. So if you don't put it on Cody, if you treat him like a mid-card guy, and you're trying to convince, Wardlow, MJF, even, Ricky Starks to all come over there, they're going to look and go, I don't know about that here. We've seen how you treat the AEW guys. Well, I think we'll stay here at AEW. I mean, they want these young stars. I mean, they're trying that roster. When you look at it, is all of a sudden an old roster like AJ Styles, Lesnar, Balor, Edge, Lashley, even Damian Priest. They're over 40 years old and over. I mean, after a while, you look and go, where's the new blood? Where's guys under the age of 30 coming up? And outside of Austin Theory, you don't really see anybody on that main roster that's young. They're all either 30 or older, and sometimes even 40 and older.
Hey, man, I'm 30. I'm not old.
Starting to feel
trying
that
to
way.
say?
You haven't given like 10 years into the ring, getting your body beat up and going, oh crap, I think I can't walk. I might need a
You
cortisone
mean I had
injection."
people ripping on my arms for 10 years? Just kidding. I mean, kind of, but.
Trust me, you're old, bro. You're old.
No, I agree, dude. Like I said, I mean, I think both companies really, if you think about it, are gonna end up having to do some, younging up of the roster. Even if you look at the AEW side, like, I mean, a lot of their top stars are proven guys that they had from WWE and elsewhere. So I think eventually that's going to be a change that you're going to gradually see, and you're already gradually seeing throughout wrestling. So Chris, let me ask you this, dude. How do you want to see this whole thing with Kevin and Sami play out?
I'd love to see a triple threat because I think that makes as much sense for all parties when you think of it. You put the Usos.
So you think he could still end up in the titles? Or in you're talking about tag title.
Yes, I think eventually it becomes the reluctant team, sort of like Kane and Daniel Bryan, where they really don't like each other, or Kevin Owens is basically just sort of like reluctant to have Sami, and you get Sami and Kevin versus Sheamus and Drew McIntyre versus the Usos. That way, you have everybody's just in there. You have 3 tag teams that all have been trying to get the same thing. Two of them have been trying to destroy the bloodline. It makes probably more sense in terms of the drama.
So I could see that. I personally am more of a fan of somehow they get to the tag between the Usos and whoever, or if it ends up being, I don't know, Jay and Sami or whatever. But I agree with you. I think there definitely has got to be some representation for it. I think somehow or another, Kevin and Sami are going to end up in that. But before we get off the wrestling end of things, there's a couple other things I wanted to ask you guys about, and one of which was another thing that happened at Elimination Chamber. So, Corey, I don't know how much you paid attention, but what are your thoughts on all this shit with Ariel Hewani and Tony Khan? And now it looks like Ariel's already maybe managed to do the same thing he did in the UFC and pro wrestling already.
I think that's a funny take on it because I don't view it I guess from that light. It's just, I don't know, it's weird how much of a polarizing figure Ariel Hewani manages to be for somebody who's just mostly a media guy that kind of just, I mean, he has some tough questions, but not really. It's most, he runs the biggest show for a reason because he's able to get most guests other than, Ali Dallas, these guys, other than those guys, he gets pretty much everybody. So I'm very surprised by it. I didn't see the finer details. I didn't see the back and forth as much. I just seen I seen the blow up from it, and I seen part of his response, and I just kind of tuned it out after that because it was I'm just surprised, I guess. And then for Tony Khan, it seems like he's the one that instigated the whole thing. So what was the point of that? Just because he's working with the competition who happens to be in his hometown that time? But he's a journalist, and journalists are supposed to cover the sport that they're covering. So it doesn't matter necessarily the organization. So that's where I'm kind of I feel like Tony Khan's the one in the wrong in all this, at least from what I've seen. So,
Chris, what do you think, man?
I mean, look, Ariel Hewani is what he is. He goes for the bigger buck. He's becoming a glorified PR guy.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you're Tony Khan, you just ignore it, but it just makes Tony look bad, especially when they're doing their own sort of basketball game with the Young Bucks, and there's the Miz, at the NBA champion, the Celebrity All-Star game, hitting a game-winning shot. I mean, it's AEW. It just seems to be sort of a second-rate wannabe WWE now, and you look and you go, just Tony, stop, please stop. Just get him off Twitter, get him off of social media. Just let him go quiet, let him go dark. because he keeps just shooting himself in the foot with his mouth, and it makes him look small. It makes the entire company look small.
Yeah, I can.
J-Mon, where are you at on it, bro? Go ahead. Sorry,
I can definitely agree with that point because, yeah, like I was saying, I mean, it's not necessarily Ariel's place to go just cover AEW and just give them nothing but direct shine. And I've listened to his show many a times where he's talked their show up during the week and talked up what they have going on and stuff. So for Tony Khan to kind of push button, it's a weird look for me. Like you say, why are you doing that?
Yeah,
but
yeah, no, I'm with you guys, dude. Like, look, like you said, Ariel Hewani's doing his job. There's nobody out there that's gonna say, "Yeah, I'll come report for you. I'll come talk some stuff with you." And then the next day you get an offer from another company. You're gonna say no because I just did it with those guys. It's not how it works, dude. It's all about the money and the exposure. That's what it is. So the fact that he is being that polarizing, glorified PR guy, like, good on him. And the fact that we've been doing this for a couple years now with Tony Khan, man. Somebody needs to take his phone away or something because it's a bad look. It's not. I don't mind you having Twitter and social media, but you're not doing it the right way, dude. Every time you want to throw a fit, you throw a fit on Twitter. You know, it's just like Chris said, you're making your company look small. You're throwing a fit. You're being a crybaby, dude. Just ignore it, and you shouldn't have any problem.
What was the actual shot that was taken, so I can have some more clarity?
So basically, in a nutshell, Ariel interviewed Tony Khan, and Tony Khan didn't want to talk about.
I remember said interview, and it was very. Right. I do remember now that point. Now that you say that, I do remember said interview because it was very like he just refused to answer the majority of the questions. Yeah, the majority.
Yeah, so basically they did the interview, and Ariel said after the fact that Tony Khan just didn't really say anything, and like Tony Khan didn't want to give anything up on answers. And, you know, in said interview, they had talked about WWE and all this shit. And basically because Ariel showed up on WWE's pay-per-view, I'm assuming Tony took his shot and called him a fraud. Now, here's the thing. Like J-Bone said, like, at the end of the day, dude, if you're not signed to somebody, which Ariel is not signed to any one person, if I got an opportunity tomorrow to go do what he was doing when they come here to Detroit, I would do that shit in 2.5 seconds and wouldn't think about it. Now, granted, is it a little different when you're talking about somebody like Ariel Hewani because it's really similar to kind of what happened when he was in the when he did the shit with the UFC, where it basically came out that he was getting a paycheck from the UFC at one point and all that kind of stuff. So it's not quite on that level, but it's just funny that he's only been around like the wrestling stuff this short amount of time, and he's already all wrapped up in it. I agree completely with what you're saying. I don't think necessarily that Ariel did anything wrong, and I think Tony should have just left it alone. But that being said, it is kind of funny that Ariel always ends up to be in the center of the shit.
Mm-hmm. True. Bottom line, though, if you don't
think
want
about
to
it, MMA and wrestling apart, he's been in the middle of shit with the two major. You know?
Yeah. Bottom line is, though, if you don't want him to go work for the competition, hire him. That's it. Or let the man go make his money. That ain't on you, bro. I'm sorry.
It's like I talk about
even not to interrupt, but even at that, if he wanted to downplay their existence or shoot down AEW or anything of the sorts, why would he have
interviewed Tony Khan?
Why would he have interviewed him in the first place? Or why would he have had multiple of their athletes on? I mean, he's had many. I've sat through at work and listened to many of AEW, wrestlers' interviews in my ear while I'm working, like many a time. So if that was the case, why would he, just because he made fun of or joked around with that particular instance where he had you on the show, he still wouldn't have had you there had he not felt like you deserved the position or whatever the case be.
Right.
It's interesting, if nothing else, dude. And the other thing I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on before we switch over to the MMA side of things, and when we switch over to the MMA side of things, we're going to switch the roles for a little bit. Y'all can we'll talk a little bit about Lights Out 10, which just took place down there at the Hype Athletics Center in Wayne. And yes, we've learned that I know how to call a nut shot. But with that being said, Mercedes Mone, I'm not going to lie. When I heard she was going for the title, I didn't really think she was going to win. I kind of thought the New Japan thing was just going to be, okay, I'm going to go to New Japan, prove that I can do what I said I'm going to do, have the match with Kyrie, and then who knows where she ended up after that. Well, they had the match Saturday, February 18th, Battle in the Bay, and we have a new IWGP Women's Champion in Mercedes Mone. So at this point, now she's got the New Japan strap too. So what are your thoughts, Chris, on Mercedes Mone picking up that New Japan strap?
I mean, it's nice, but I guess in the long run, it's like, okay, what's the plan? I mean, they're going to partner with Impact Wrestling, get her better opponents, like,
because they don't have much of a women's division. Most of the people are all Stardom.
So yeah, that's sort of the problem. It's like, okay, that's great, but if you want to get, and look, she's going to need better competition. Kairi Sane is not what, Mercedes Mone was dealing with. I mean, Charlotte Flair, she's not Charlotte Flair, she's not Asuka, she's not Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, Bayley. It's a big step down. And so they're going to have to figure out, like, okay, what's the next step? Do you start partnering with CMLL, AAA? Do you bring in, Deonna Purrazzo from Impact? Do you try to partner with AEW's women? I mean, they got to figure something out, or else it's sort of like a waste of Mercedes Mone's time. Like, all right, great, you're in New Japan, I get it, you want to be happy, but it was like an okay match. It was good, not great.
J-Bone, what about you, man? What do you think about Mercedes Mone in New Japan, bro?
No, I'm with Chris on this, man. It's cool to see. It's fun to watch. It wasn't, like you said, it wasn't the best match I've ever seen, but she's got the star power. I guess we're just building on that right now. But I'm more interested to see what's going to happen next. Because, what's next? Where do you go next? You need bigger competition. You need better wrestling, especially in New Japan. Like those bland, matches will get old quick. And before you know it, that belt ain't gonna mean much if you're having bad matches. So yeah, she's got to find a way to step it up. Hopefully she does some other shit, man. Forbidden Door, just something.
Well, I was just about to say that. What about, I mean, yes, they don't necessarily have a lot of women in New Japan, but what if, now that she wins the title, okay, maybe she does like Cody was doing for a minute when he was out on the Indies, except she's got the New Japan belt. What if, maybe she shows up in Impact? We've already seen New Japan, people over there. What if she shows up in Impact? What if she shows up on New Japan Strong? What if, holy shit, what if for some reason she showed up in AEW for a night? Who knows? There's a million ways to do it, but I think there was. What?
Is she a big enough star, in your guys' opinion, to be able to bring people over to New Japan? Is it like, you see the move in sports.
How many thousand? Yes, because how many thousand subscribers went up when she showed up, dude? I forgot the number, but they're New Japan subscriptions. But it was a big ass number it was like, I forgot how many thousand subscriptions. Yeah. And not to mention,
shot worked for sure.
We're talking about one of 4 women, one of 2 matches in which women main evented WrestleMania. You said it was match of the WrestleMania that happened, Corey. That was out of your mouth. So you tell me, if they're putting her in the main event and they put her in there so that Bianca Belair would be in there with somebody who could help her to be better, then you tell me, is she a big enough star? Because I don't see anybody else. I don't see very many people and I'm not just saying this as a slap or anything, but let's be honest. How many women have main evented WrestleMania?
Yeah. Well, no,
and
what I meant by
the Mandalorian and all that stuff too.
What I meant by that is, I always bring this stuff back to the stuff I know, and that's, sports reference here. is you see a basketball team or some shit, they land a big star, and then all of a sudden, all these free agents want to start jumping on that team because they feel like that's going to all of a sudden be a winning team. And I was saying it in that regard.
In that analogy,
do you feel like New Japan could be trying to make a push where they all of a sudden do try to bring in some different women's talent to help booster their women's roster type of deal, with holding her as the crown, the queen of the division, essentially, somebody to chase for all these new, people that they could potentially sign?
Chris, what do you think?
It's tough. It's because we look at. I get what fight fan here is saying, because I understand, it's in that aspect correct, but it's a different breed here, pro wrestling and also MMA. It's a UFC, WWE, they are a brand. It's, I think they view it as you can put anybody there. It's interchangeable, star power, It's now about the brand. It's about, you can put anybody in there and they get the ratings. I don't know if Mercedes is a big enough star to really make it a big impact. And I don't think there is one. Maybe Brock Lesnar was the last one in his peak. Even Ronda Rousey, you look at her and it's like, okay, it was great when she started. Now it's like, she's on TV. It's like, yeah. And this is Ronda Rousey. This is somebody who's also been in movies, been in TV, UFC champion. And yet she appears on Fox. And even when she doesn't appear, you don't notice the ratings. So I'm not sure if Mercedes is a big enough name to really do damage. I think she's great.
Yeah. And
I think New Japan can, make money off of her and vice versa. But I don't know if she's that, I'd say John Cena, The Rock, Stone Cold, and that if they go over there and all of a sudden you're getting 500,000 people now tuning in to watch them, or even 1 million people.
Yeah, I feel like the difference, though, in that reference at least, is the Sasha Banks, Monet, however you want to word her name now. She has the respect of the wrestling fans, where I feel like a Ronda or somebody else, some of these other, potential stars don't necessarily have the hardcore fan support where I feel like she does. And that's where the difference, like what you were saying, Kyle, with where their support, their numbers went up and stuff a ton. I don't think if you've seen Ronda Rousey, like what, for instance, when you've seen Kane make his debut over in AAA, right? Wasn't that AAA who he was wrestling for down there? Was he
Velasquez? Yeah.
Yeah, was he making some huge number jump for them? I feel like if Ronda didn't make the splash right into WWE, if she would have went the Impact route or something like that, people would have tuned in, but it would have been far lesser. And I feel like with the Sasha Banks analogy, it's different because the hardcore wrestling fans are tuned in to her, where it's not just like let's see how this turns out type of thing.
So I think it's going to bring a lot more eyes. I think it's definitely going to bring a lot more eyes. But do I think it's going to be something to where people are going to start watching New Japan all the time because she's over there? I don't think so, because I don't think anybody really expects her to stay over there. Now, that being said, I mean, she is the champion. So let's see how long, she plans on staying there. But no, do I think it's going to be something where it's necessarily going to just jump the numbers to where New Japan's viewership is just going to just skyrocket because of it. I definitely think it'll be a good shot in the arm, but I don't know that it the same way like people compare like Jericho going to AEW. Like Jericho going to AEW gave AEW instant credibility. And when he won their title, it was the same thing. Now, I don't know that Sasha Banks going to a New Japan has the same juice to be able to do that, but I definitely think that regardless of what we get out of it, it'll be a good shot in the arm for New Japan.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this though: where does she land at the end of all this? At the end of it all, what happens? I feel like she has a run in New Japan, and then obviously we know she's doing Mandalorian and all that stuff, and I think eventually. I think especially with new management and all that kind of stuff, I think she'll eventually wind around back into WWE at some point. But I feel like she's going to try to make her point.
somewhere else to prove her point that she was the star that she thought she was. But that's just me. What do you think, Chris?
I think she goes full into acting, and you're seeing more of these women do it. I mean, the rumor already is that Charlotte Flair is going to take a break after WrestleMania, do her own TV show. Becky Lynch has mentioned she wants to get a TV. I mean, you just after a while, it's just the grind, the constant, just getting beaten up, the constant, having to work hard and everything. I mean, you've seen Edge now. Even Edge said, "Look, I don't know how long I'm going to do this. He has a Disney show which he's a part of. He's, already on a very part-time deal. Once a lot of these guys get that acting bug, it becomes tough to go back because you're just sitting there going, constant working, constant, throwing my body through this, or I go to Hollywood, I have a stunt man, and I don't have to, I have somebody doing my makeup, my hair, and I get paid a whole lot more money to do a lot less work."
True. That is true.
It's definitely an option, dude. I mean, we all know that she's been doing Mandalorian and all the other things that she's doing. It definitely could happen. As far as New Japan, I think it's a good thing for New Japan. I think regardless of how this works, clearly they've already gotten a jump in subscribers. I don't know how much of a long-term effect it's going to have, but regardless, I think things are going to be Monet over there in New Japan. But with that being said, you know what else could get you a lot of Monet is hooking up with our homies at G3 Payroll and Tax. I can tell you because I didn't realize until I looked at my bank account today that they put a hold on my taxes for a second. Fuck you, bank, just because it's a holiday. But that being said, I got paid thanks to the homies at G3 Payroll and Tax. Check out the links in the description. Get your taxes done. And tell them Knockouts and 3 Counts sent you, and Jack will give you money off of your taxes for every person that you refer. Like I said, you can do it simple, just like we are, through one of these Zoom boxes. Make sure you do that, and tell them that Knockouts and 3 Counts sent you. Well, speaking of making money, I'd like to make some money, but I got to do some really cool shit on Saturday as well. It was fight night over this way. We did Lights Out Championship. We had Matt Friendo on there. Pretty packed ass building over there at Hype Athletics in Wayne, Michigan. Adrian, past guest of the show, picked him up another world title. Yeah, man, it was a good time, and we have figured out that I know how to call a nut shot. Go figure. The guy who said the best finisher there could be is kicking somebody in the dick knows how to call a nut shot. Holy shit.
I had to ask you about this. I'm glad you brought it up. Well, okay, first of all, was that supposed to be caught on commentary, or was that like I mean, I've never done commentary. You got the experience here. There's a mute button there, correct? Was that a blooper?
No, I meant
something?
that.
Did you
No,
mean
that
to say
wasn't
okay.
a blooper. Yes,
Okay,
I meant
okay.
to say that.
Okay.
Yes,
good.
I meant. Well, he hit him in the balls.
Nut shot.
He hit him in the balls, and if you watch the clip, I mean, the guy instantly is like, "Oh!"
Yeah.
I mean, I called what I saw.
Hey,
He got hit in the nuts. And the irony of it, the irony of that is the fact that he's the guy that came out to Mark Henry. Somebody going to get their ass kicked. Somebody's going to get their weave split. And the only thing that split might have been his nuts.
Oof. Ouch. Yikes. So, from your viewpoint, though, behind the desk, man, who and what really stood out on that card, fighter wise?
Dean Caldwell coming back off a 7-year layoff and looking like the Dean Caldwell that I remember when he was tearing up the amateur scene here. Called the man an M16 for a reason, and once he got on his back and just started raining down punches on homie, it was a bad night. Dean Caldwell was definitely a standout. Also, shout out to Abe Al-Sagir, winning him the Lights Out Championship and announcing he wants to go pro. He fought a kid out of Louisiana who was the other wrestling theme of the night. He came out to Cody Rhodes' song and then he didn't improve his kingdom. But that being said, that was another one. And obviously, past guest of the show, Adrian Hodgebej was in the main event. But I got to say, that fight threw me the fuck off because nobody told me that was a 3-round fight. It was the main event. It was a title fight. The graphics said it was supposed to be 5 rounds, and then they ended up fighting 3 rounds. And I didn't know what the fuck happened. I'm like, wait a minute. We got to the end of the 3rd round, and I'm like, what the hell happened? Like, where are the other two rounds? And then I find out later on.
This info.
Yeah, I was like,
No.
I did not know this, but it was a good performance for Adrian, man. His fans were out there in droves. All in all, it was a good time. Shout out to Kara Rowe being an absolute savage on the post-fight interviews, because I about died laughing on commentary because Lance Bishop, after this nasty knockout, gets on the microphone and, like, to every question she asked him, it's like, I'm just having fun, man. I'm trying to have fun, man. And then, like, as she went to ask him the last question, she's like, well, do you got anything else you want to say? We know you had fun, but do you got any? that popped me pretty hard. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, she
all
does
all,
a great
dude,
job.
It was a good time.
She really does a great job. That's one thing for sure. But beyond that, I know we had talked a little bit about it with Frendo when we had him on here. But talk about the layout. Talk about the lighting situation and all that. I mean, you said in a message to me, unfortunately, life got in the way Saturday. I wasn't able to make it out. But you said that they had actually
waited
cleared
too long
up
to buy tickets.
No, it wasn't even that. But it wasn't even that, really. But either way, they ended up clearing up a couple of the things that were maybe setbacks in the last performance that you were saying in the
Well, they went and bought their own light truss and all that, so they had their own lighting system, which the lighting over the cage was definitely better than the last fight. All in all, it was a more open thing. There was alcohol for people to buy. There was better food options. Like, I smashed me some chicken tenders when I got to the building. Yeah, all in all, it was cool. They had shout out to Goldkind, one of the sponsors they had there. They had their stuff there. Got a new lighter and a lanyard, and then you had Wayne Relief was there, and they had the car wash sponsoring it. I mean, it was a pretty good turnout, dude. I liked the overall layout. The lights were cool.
Not real quick, not just the car wash, Fash Splash Car Wash. They also sponsor my business as well, because we fix all their garage doors. So want to throw that name out there because they provide money to my business as well.
Shout out to Fast Splash. But yeah, all in all, dude, it was a good time. I enjoyed watching the fights. It's the atmosphere of being around that stuff is dope. It's always cool to see old friends from back in the day. Shout out to James Lee, UFC vet, Pride vet, knocking out Travis View over there in Japan, fighting Alessio Sakara and all those guys in the UFC. And hopefully we can talk with the Monkey God, Jared Brooks, your 1FC for strawweight champion soon. And there's a lot of guys there, a lot of cool stuff going down, dude. Always a good time at the fight. Shout out to Matt Frendo. If you didn't get to check it out, make sure you go check it out at Spectation Sports. And feel free to grade my commentary. Also, shout out to past guests of the show, Bulletproof Troop, getting the motherfucking dub at High Rollers 24. He had Rob Van Dam in his corner, so I'm just going to venture he might have been on Cloud 9 heading out to the cage. But even if he was on Cloud 9, his opponent wasn't, because he about ripped his fucking arm off with a Kimura that he called a double wrist lock. That really fucking popped me. But yeah, he destroyed the guy. Shout out to him. Shout out to RVD. Shout out to Lonnie and all the guys over there at High Rollers. That was pretty dope. I can't wait for them to come through Detroit here March 10th. So it's going to be a good time.
Before we jump off of Lights Out real quick, any news on any possible upcoming events as well?
I haven't heard anything on the next event yet. I'm sure I'll know something soon with that. But all I know is if they want to keep bringing me back, I'm down. I had a good time. Like I said, other promotions, hit your boy up. I like to yell at people while they're getting beat up. But because I don't got to be the one getting beat up this way. I've already been there, done that. That's why I got the scar over my nose. But that's a story for another time. But that being said, I enjoyed the hell out of it. It was a good time. Chris, how much of the bare knuckle stuff do you get to watch, bro?
I don't get to watch much of it, and I've never been a fan. Well, I did see, and this has been talking right now in town. That's Greg Hardy getting knocked out. I mean, it's just sad now. It's like, you thought he was going to be this big star of the UFC. He was destroying people. Now it's like, man, you're getting knocked out in bare knuckle boxing. It's not a good look. It's time to.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's a lot easier to get knocked out in bare knuckle boxing, but still.
Yeah, but
he didn't need to be there.
No.
And you would figure it was against a much lesser opponent as well, than compared to much of his other.
Dude, but at heavyweight, when he
so.
weighs in at 295 and his opponent's only a few pounds lighter than him, regardless, the guy's gotta be able to hit hard. That was the thing that was most crazy to me. I understand what you're saying, that goes with the weight limit, but he weighed in at 295 for a fucking fist fight.
You let these big boys weigh in at 295 legally, they're coming in at 295, baby. No big surprise there.
But my point is, sure, I'm not saying I'm mad at you for weighing that. What I'm saying is you cannot tell me he was in the best shape for that.
Oh, I mean, absolutely not. When you looked at him compared to some of his, more previous fights, like
you
Chris
just can't. I'm sorry, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Like I mean, at that high of a weight, I don't buy it. And I mean, the thing is, I feel like he just kind of came in way overconfident and just thought, okay, I should be the better athlete, so I'm just going to make this guy look bad, whatever. But really, to be honest, dude, it was kind of like the same thing that we saw in the UFC. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Is he a good, raw, natural athlete? Nobody can say that he's not, because otherwise he wouldn't have played football. But he hasn't transitioned well over into combat sports. And let's face it, that can't be what Bare Knuckle FC wanted to see in his debut.
No, I'm sure
they
paid
this dude an ass load of money.
Yeah.
Oh. And he got knocked out, knocked out bad. Not just like they fought for 5 rounds and he got caught at the end. Like, he was out. And he got dropped at the end of the first round.
They were already basically setting him up to fight Rothwell in like one of their next upcoming events.
They kill him.
Even their announcers, I forgot who said it, but even their announcers at the desk was saying when they were breaking down the upcoming events, they were like, depending on how this one goes with Hardy tonight, we may see him taking on Rothwell. So to your point, Kyle, that was definitely not the direction that they wanted to go. I guess takeaway from BKFC's event this past weekend, because the Greg Hardy thing was, that's not what they wanted. It wasn't great. It wasn't a great showcasing of his skills.
The main event was fucking fire, though.
Yeah. To your point, Kyle, was it absolutely just like him kind of going in there overconfident, overcocky, thinking he was just going to get put in there with a lesser opponent and steamroll a guy? That's what it looked like to me. 100%. And then he got hit, and then he got hit again. Then he got put down in the end of the first round. And as soon as he stood up, you could just see he wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
I knew the fight was over as soon as that one happened. I knew there was, unless he landed some bomb like what ended up happening in the main event later on, that was over. But what my main theme was, before we do kind of jump into the other fights of the card, it seemed like BKFC, I don't know if they lined it up like this intentionally or whatnot, but they kind of seemed like they had the combat sports event of the weekend, in my opinion, with KnuckleMania here. The UFC kind of really shit the bed with their performance. Of course, you had the WWE in their thing, but I'm not counting that towards this aspect of the combat sports, But I felt like out of all the shows that we had running this past weekend, I feel like BKFC had the best showing. I mean, maybe some of the guys they wanted to win and stuff didn't show and stuff like that, but that's the nature of it.
Probably the most entertaining show to watch. But I mean, I would hope so, because KnuckleMania is supposed to be like their WrestleMania kind of thing. So like, I mean, I would hope that you're going to do that. Now, that being said, this card that they got in April that's coming up, you got Chad Mendez coming back to fight on there. You got Ben Rothwell going to fight on there. You got Alan Belcher supposed to fight on there. Like, dude, or no, Alan Belcher's coming up before that then.
Yeah, you got Mike Perry on that one.
Yeah, that's who I would meant to say. Mike Perry's on that one as well.
Mhm.
I mean, that's more like the one that they're going to have that's going to have all the eyes. But yeah, I mean, I would hope they would with that card. I really was looking forward to the Mike Richmond fight because I was a big fan of Mike Richmond and Bellator. And I mean, dude, he was all but there knocking Lorenzo Hunt the fuck out. And he dropped him at the end of the round. And then literally when he gets back up, he goes to fucking finish the job and gets a little squirrely and then gets stiffed to the point where she's just like this. Like, bro.
Face planted. Like just flat. Like
that wasn't even face planted. He fell over like a 2x4. Just
was he on his back? I could have swore he was face.
Yes, he was on his
like
back,
flat.
dude. He was on his
I thought
back.
he was
no.
Either way,
he fell
it was
straight back and was like this.
Just stiff. It was just stiff as a bit like
dude, but I mean, I gotta give credit where it's due. Look, man, I've said it before. I like Lorenzo Hunt. I don't know if we need to see all the stuff when he jumps in the ring afterwards all the time. But as a fighter, dude, that guy's got dynamite in his hands, dude. And I mean, there's no arguing that. And you got to give credit where it's due. I think if he wants to go fight for the heavyweight title, like he's saying, let him fight the winner of Alan Belcher and Arnold Adams. I mean, I feel like if you're going to do that, maybe he's earned it. But man, what a way to end it. But the fight that really stuck out to me, first of all, shout out to the Dodson brothers. John Dodson and his brother both fought on there. Both got nasty knockouts. John Dodson is still fast as all hell. Like, dude, he swarmed on that
like
man
lightning
before
man.
he ever
like
had
lightning.
a chance. Yeah. So I think he'll do
that was
good
a
over
wild
there.
showing. Yeah, that was a wild
Chris,
showing.
the one that I want to ask you about, I know you probably didn't get to see it, but it's somebody from the boxing world. Man, Austin Trout beat the dog shit out of Diego Sanchez, man. Holy shit.
I don't think too many people were surprised with that.
Yeah,
I didn't say surprised. I'm just, dude, he didn't even throw power in none of those shots, and he just boxed the shit out of him.
Did you guys see the whole Grease thing that came up too with this whole so Kyle's your face tells me you didn't hear about this. So there's a bunch of videos circulating of his coach, basically Austin Trout's coach, basically getting a handful of Vaseline and rubbing his shoulders down right before the start of the first round. And Diego Sanchez is making a huge fit of it, saying that's why I wasn't able to clinch and all this, that, and the other.
Fuck off.
I agree with you, Kyle. I just wanted to get.
That's the same thing he said when he fought Miles. When Miles beat him up, he said it was because he ate beef tartare.
Yeah, but there's an actual video of the said incident, so it is like
dude.
There
but
is some video
if you watch the fight, fuck the
didn't,
Vaseline.
Yeah,
if you watch the fight, Austin Trout was beating his ass from one end of the ring to the other. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Chris.
and he wasn't even really attempting the clinch like that. But yeah,
no.
Let me jump in here because I need. This is why I don't watch bare knuckle boxing. Austin Trout still is a top 15, top 20 light middleweight. He's only lost to guys named Charlo, Hurd, and a guy. You might have heard him, Canelo Alvarez. All those guys are world champions, and Arasandi Lara, once again, world champion.
He's good too.
Why do you put him in there against Diego Sanchez, who's not a boxer, who's never been a boxer? And then everybody's surprised, like, Trout just ran straight over him. You could have seen him out of the way. That's why I do not like BK bare knuckle boxing. The times they do these fights where it's like, do you want somebody to die? Do you want somebody just to get in there and just get beaten, have his brains beat in? Because that's what I thought was going to happen. Austin Trout, who is a former world champion. He's beaten, Miguel Cotto. He's beaten guys like, a draw with Terrell Gausha, beaten guys like Daniel Dawson, Frank Laporto, Rigoberto Alvarez. I mean, he's a good fighter. He's won a world title. And you put him in there against a MMA guy, and he's going to just beat the britches off him, especially an MMA guy who is, as everybody has agreed here, way past his prime.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you on the matchup part, but my question is this. So I agree definitely in some of the ways, like some of the matchups have been there. Like sometimes, and Corey and you and I have talked about this, like watching some of the events. Now, I'm a big fan of BKFC. Obviously, we've had, Christine Faria, Britton Hart, Josh Burns, all kinds of people from the bare knuckle world on the show. So I'm not trying to dog it. That being said, I think this one kind of had more to do with the fact that they were both from New Mexico on that one. I think they were trying to bank off that. But I think the fight that they've already announced that's supposed to be next for that fight. Now that fight really intrigues me. They're talking about Austin Trout versus arguably the greatest bare knuckle fighter in the world because was the first double champ in Luis Palomino. I think that could be a hell of a fight. But I see what you're saying, though, with the matchups and things like that, especially with a guy like Austin Trout. But, I mean, I've been saying that for a while. Like, the pure boxers that can come over and are able to learn how to gauge how hard they need to hit and be able to still box like that, dude, them guys are fucking dangerous. But I wouldn't be mad at a fight with him and Palomino.
But I agree with what you're saying, Chris, because the matchup for me, if you're gonna have Diego Sanchez, you're gonna pay him. This is supposed to be potentially his retirement fight and stuff going into this one. And if you're gonna do all that, put him in a not favorable matchup, but put him in a 50-50 matchup, not somebody where he's already at a disadvantage going into it. That was my issue with the particular matchup. But for the whole thing with Austin Trout and maybe taking on lesser opponents in BKFC, we've seen where some of these higher level, maybe not to this level, to your point, Austin Trout is a legitimate, high level boxer, but we've seen some of these high level guys come in there and they get hit and it just reacts to them differently. The BKFC rule set and stuff like that, it does with the clinching and stuff like that. You've seen some people really not adapt well. To Kyle's point, you've seen some people either take over the people that were really well in boxing or just not adapt well whatsoever and realize that this is not a sport for them.
But it's always been boxers who either were sort of past their prime and not fighting a lot, like Paulie Malignaggi had not fought in a long time, or other guys who weren't that good. Austin Trout was just coming off a win against Jose Sanchez Charles, who was 22-1 this December. He's on, a 5-fight win streak, and and he went a majority decision with Jermell Charlo, who, that was 5 years ago. It's still one of the closest fights Jermell has had in his entire career. I mean, you can argue, he is a guy who's arguably one of the best pound-for-pound fighters. And you throw him in there against guys who, even Palomino, he will destroy him. He is in his shape. He understands very quickly about knowing how to throw a jab, knowing, what your opponent's power is, knowing what your opponent likes to do. And more importantly, he is just in prime boxing shape. He is a guy who trains and fights at least 2 or 3 times per year. He's having good camps. This isn't some, just washed up fighter. This is a guy who still is a top 15 guy, still is a guy in shape, still is a guy who knows, how to get in there, fight, fight from the inside, use body shots. And I don't care who you are in MMA, he will pick you apart and he will just destroy you because he's just that much levels better than anybody in MMA.
I mean, like I said, I wouldn't argue that, but it brought up a thought while you guys were talking. To be honest, it kind of seems like the world of fighting is kind of starting to go sort of similar to like the world of wrestling when you think about it. Like outside of the UFC anyway. Like think about, okay, we're talking about BKFC, but let's think about, okay, we mentioned Mike Perry earlier. Mike Perry, is doing this, but we know he's the alternate for the Jake Paul, Tommy Fury thing. And he's already said that he's not done with MMA yet. So who knows? Maybe he shows up in PFL next. We've already seen a guy like Michael Venom Page from Bellator come over to BKFC, and we know he's not done with Bellator. So I don't know that I necessarily have a problem with it, with him splitting his time in between this and boxing. I mean, if I'm Austin Trout, it's another thing that you can add to your resume and say, not only did I win a boxing world championship, I won a bare knuckle world championship and was able to do it without, taking any major damage. I mean, I totally get what you're saying with him still being in the prime of his career and still getting notable wins. But I'm also, and again, maybe this is from the wrestling side of things, but dude, I'm not mad at people trying to make their bag and then not even just trying to make their bag, but just trying to test yourself in other areas. Me personally, I'm not too mad about it, but only time will tell with what he does next in BKFC and if it really affects what he's got going on in boxing and if that does anything to tarnish or hurt his legacy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. All in all, I was a fan of KnuckleMania. I thought it was cool. They had quite a good gate there. Hopefully, they continue to grow. I'm looking forward to seeing past guests of the show, Britt and Hart, get back in the cage or get back in the ring with the Tennessee Gangster, and then you got you've got other fellow guests of the show, Christine Faria, getting in there again with Beck Rawlings. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with those two fights. Stay tuned. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and you'll have to see what we've got coming to you. All right. Well, we've talked about KnuckleMania. We've talked about Lights Out. Speaking of shocks and all those kind of things, Erin Blanchfield just done put herself on fucking notice after that win in the UFC. Yes, we had a guest on that card. Shout out to our guy Juancamilo Ronderos. Came out quick. He got caught in a choke, but it's his first fight back in a few years. I think we will see Mr. Ronderos again inside the UFC cage. But the star of the show with UFC Vegas 69, dude, is Erin Blanchfield. What are your guys' thoughts on her win and beating Andrade? And they're already talking about her being in the mix for fighting with Shevchenko. I don't know if she's necessarily ready for that, but what are your thoughts on the big win over the big win here? And what do you think about her potentially mixing it up with Shevchenko?
To your point, Kyle, what you were just saying, is she necessarily ready for the title and stuff? Who else in the division do you beat that's a bigger win than Andrade? I feel like that's
fair.
The thing, right? You can face a Minot Ferro, or however you pronounce her French name, who's a number 1 or 2 or 3 contender at this point, or you can do the Talia Santos fight that they originally had scheduled. But clearly they wanted her in there against the number 1, 2, 3 contender, because that's why they had her against the Talia Santos fight. So I feel like they already were putting her in a potential number 1 contender's fight, and then she ended up beating somebody who's more widely respected, at least from the casual side, for sure. Talia Santos put on a great fight against Shevchenko, but other than that, I feel like she's mostly an unknown quantity, where Andrade is a definitely known ass beater in there. And let me start my breakdown with this. This is why I don't sports gamble. This is why I refuse to do it, is because I seen that the line was almost even, and I was like, fuck, I'm about to put a whole goddamn paycheck on Andrade. They're like I was just saying, she's a world beater, and I feel like Blanchfield, I didn't expect this. I sure as hell didn't expect this. And when I seen the line was just about even, it was basically a pick 'em. I was like, oh, okay. I'm glad I didn't end up doing that. I'm glad I stuck with my guns and never downloaded the freaking app, because, I would have probably lost some fucking money on Saturday. But, man, Erin Blanchfield really showed out, dude. She held her own, and if not won, in the striking throughout the first round. Second round came around. She was the first position where she was able to not shoot for a takedown, but was able to secure a takedown. If you get what I'm trying to say there. She immediately took that position, from their advanced position, and immediately chased the finish. And it was just, what can you say, man? That was a thing of beauty. And for somebody that young in the game, that young in age, to put on a performance like that against such a known quantity in Andrade, man. Yeah, I feel like title shots a real thing, especially in the women's 125 division. I feel like Alexa Grasso is getting the fight in like 2 weeks, right? If you put Erin Blanchfield against Grasso right now, especially off the performance we just seen, who do you guys think would win that fight? So I feel like at this point, yeah, it is kind of, she's at that point, man. She's 23 years old and she's about to fight for a title. That's honestly how I feel after that performance.
Well, I mean, I heard her on there with Jimmy Smith, past guest of the show, and she was saying there's only 2 people ahead of me as it is. And I mean, being the fact that the God, why am I drawing such a blank on her name? We just said that, not Blanchfield, the girl she was supposed to fight.
Santos?
Yes. Being the fact that Santos backed out, she goes, well, that's why I should get to, I feel like I should get the next shot, especially with such a big upset. And in this instance, I feel like that's a fair point. Chris, what do you think about Erin Blanchfield's big W?
I think she's it's been a slow process, but you see the last 2 fights before that, and I guess we should be surprised. I mean, she took out J.J. Aldrich's submission guillotine choke. Okay, it's J.J. Aldrich, but still, J.J. was somebody who also was on a 3-fight win streak. Then she goes out there, and it's Molly McCann, who the UFC for a good couple of years, they've tried to build up. And Molly McCann was on a 3-fight win streak and dominating people with 2 vicious knockouts. And Erin Blanchfield, submits her with a Kimura. So it's been a great run to see Erin because she's been slowly but surely just improving with each fight, and you're watching it from unanimous decision victory over Miranda Maverick, then second round submission win over J.J. Aldrich, and then first round submission win over Molly McCann, and then Jessica Andrade was able to stop a slam. She was able to, use her own submission game, and you can argue she might be the best flyweight in the division. She's has good jiu-jitsu, she has good striking, and you go in there and you watch her, and you just feel like she believes she's going to beat anybody. You could throw anybody in that ring, and she will just take them apart, beat them up, and conquer them.
Can't really argue that, dude. I mean, all in all, like I said, big coming out party for her, dude. Like I said, it's not a bunch of other big stuff to really report off that card. I mean, Michigan's own.
Go ahead, Kyle.
He had Michigan's own Josh Parisian in there, and he lost by decision. Jim Miller, that was one you had him and
that was a damn good fight. Him and Alex Hernandez. That was my only other. I mean, there was a couple other ones on the prelims. Jamal Emmers got a really solid win over an undefeated prospect. I like that fight. I can't think of the dude's name that unfortunately lost due to doctor stoppage with the cut. He looked really good. I think Evan Alders, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was his name. But he looked really, really good before, unfortunately, the cut. But yeah, that was the only other fight I felt that was like noteworthy was the Alex Hernandez versus Jim Miller. Both of them. I don't want to say old dog. I want to say the old, OLE, old dog Jim Miller went in there and put on a solid performance. He wasn't able to get it done, of course, for everybody that's seen it, but he put on a solid performance, man, against a young, sometimes questionable Hernandez. Sometimes he looks like he's, a potential next level, guy, and then sometimes he goes in there and just lays duds. But I feel like this performance from him was pretty good. He got hit a little bit, but all in all, good on both of them, especially with Jim Miller's tenure in the UFC, I guess, at this point.
Can't go wrong with a Jim Miller fight, dude. I mean, you just can't. But I mean, It was I mean, like I said, it was a fight card. I think I was more excited about KnuckleMania 2 as well. But with that being said, Chris, I know we were talking about before we got out of here that you wanted to talk about Bellator. So before we do that, I gotta know, Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. Is it going to happen, and who wins?
Oh, I honestly don't care. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they can just both. If they can, just go. If a fight can happen, then one of Putin's bombs can drop there, and I really don't care. It's celebrity boxing. I do not care. Just go away. Just two of you go away.
I thought you liked boxing. Apparently, this
That's
is
not
for
boxing.
apparently
that's
this
celebrity. It's like, you know what? If I were to
apparently,
apparently
it's for an IBF
versus like one of the Kardashian kids. Let's just do that. Well, we'll have it on like
apparently the winner from the president of the IBF said that will be in their rankings. So apparently it's for some significance in boxing at this point. So come on, man, you gotta take that serious, right?
Shut the fuck up.
You know what? It's they found some sanctioned body that take their money. That's what it is. It's like, hey, would you like our bribe? Yes, I'll take your bribe.
When I heard that shit, I'm like, are you fucking serious, man? He hasn't. Neither one of them have fought anyone at all to get them into a rankings position whatsoever, and just because they're two celebrity names does not deserve.
Don't you dare even tell me anything about them being anywhere near a ranking. Fuck you.
That's hey, I'm not the one that I'm the messenger. I'm not the one that said it. Yeah, I didn't say it. I just repeated it.
I'm shooting the motherfucker who gave the message and the one whose message it was to give. Yeah.
I feel like it does happen this time, though. I do. I want to see Perry
I think it does now
instead, but
wouldn't it be funny if he went in there and knocked out Jake Paul? But yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I will probably be watching. I will not be buying, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting if I can find a viewing. If I can find a way to watch it.
I don't care that much. I just want to know the result, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, what do you got for us on the Bellator end, my guy?
It's a good little card. It's the main one is basically it's Yaroslav Amosov versus Logan Storley, and this is a rematch from I'd say 3 or 4 years ago when they were both highly touted, welterweights. It was actually back 2020. It was 2020, and it was a split decision win for Yaroslav Amosov. He then goes on, wins the title against Douglas Lima, just ragdolls him around. And then, unfortunately, he's been out for the last year and a half. And look, kudos to him. He left, he could have stayed in the United States, trained American top team. He decided, no, I'm staying in Ukraine. He's part of a security patrol. He's depending on what you read, he's on the front line. Either way, he is in danger. He's put himself there. Meanwhile, Logan Storley has been a guy who's been on a rampage. And look, maybe you don't like his style. That's fine. He's not for everybody. But since that loss, he's beaten Dante Shiro. He beat Neiman Gracie. And he won a split decision victory over Michael Page to become the interim champion. And it's going to be interesting. It's a 5-round fight. Can Logan Storley, can his wrestling take down Amosov? Does Amosov have a gas tank? Can Storley get caught in a submission? Because Amosov can do that. He is a Sambo wrestler. It's, if you like tactical fighting, if you like submissions, if you like wrestling, this is the match you're going to watch because it's two of the best welterweights in the world, two guys who also are still young. I mean, Storley's is barely 30, is only 30 years old. Amosov is 29, so they still have a couple of years left. It's a good fight. It's a story, with Amosov where if he retains the title, everything, you just got to look and go 27-0, up there with a guy named Habib, and he actually came back after defending his country to defend the title against a guy who nearly beat him 2 years ago.
Yeah, I love the matchup myself. If you're going to bring him back, it was. I mean, of course, it's kind of played into the cards because of, to your point, the interim title and stuff. But if you're going to come back and face the toughest competition you faced to this point, you're coming off of a layoff. It's not even a traditional layoff where you're dealing with like maybe a lingering injury and you're still able to improve some of your skills and stuff. No, like what you were saying, he was overseas defending his country, his homeland, and doing what he felt was right. But one thing he wasn't able to do, I'm sure too much of while he was over there, was train and improve his skills. While Logan Storley was over here doing what he could to continue to grind and improve. He put on a little bit of a lackluster performance against MVP, but you could see that the continued evolution of his skills, even against somebody as dangerous as MVP. My thing is, does Logan Storley at all try to change his style whatsoever going into this because of all the criticism that he received from that MVP fight, A, and then B, like I was saying with the layoff with Amislav, however you say his name properly. Every time I hear it, I just think of Brian Campbell on Morning Combat talking about Amislav Yaroslav. That's all I can think about when I hear his name, but I know that's not proper, so I'm not going to just disrespect him in that regard. But it's something close to that. But either way, incredibly impressive resume, and I feel like it's a real test coming back from the time served to see where he's at. I mean, he's undefeated for a reason. He's put on some incredible performances against some guys that are more well known for sure. And I'm very excited to see if he's able to continue that streak that he had going before, unfortunately.
He was 29 years old. Is that what you guys said? He's 29?
He is 29 years old. Yeah, I mean,
29 years old. 29 years old with almost 27 professional wins, dude. That is incredible. That is actually very incredible.
Yeah.
That's nuts. That is.
You know what they
crazy.
say, bro? They maul bears over there. But with that being said,
that
being said, I mean, we've heard plenty about Storley too, because I mean, we just had Mitch McKee fresh off his win at LFA 150. You know, he talked about training with Gable Steveson and Brock Lesnar, and he specifically said that Logan Storley was the one that got him into MMA. He's the one that recruited him to come over there to kill Cliff FC and the room full of killers that they got over there. So I've been hearing quite a lot about Logan Storley here lately. I mean, dude, I hope it's a great night for Bellator. I mean, we talk about it all the time. We're fans of Bellator here. I wish that there was a little bit more hype around some of the things that they did more often, but I mean, I think that's going to be another good fight. And I mean, Bellator usually puts on a great product. I just, like I said, I just wish that maybe they could do a little more as far as the whole thing with how they promote everything and all those kinds of things. But at the very least, dude, we got plenty of shit to talk about. Like it says in the description, we are on the road to WrestleMania. I, for one, am counting down the days because I'm ready to get on a fucking plane and go to LA. I'm just saying, I'm ready to get the fuck out of here. I'm tired of slinging the mail. I'd like to be slinging some margaritas in LA instead. So that being said, I don't know, man. I feel like we've covered the gamut. Chris, what do you got coming up on the last call, bro?
Well, let's see. Tomorrow we're gonna be stopped by as a guy by the name of John Salter. Just fresh off an interview with him. He's going to be taking on Aaron Jeffrey on Bellator 293. Looking forward to that interview.
Yeah, excited for that fight.
And as I said, we also got a guy who on Thursday, very excellent interview with a guy who, I'm not gonna lie, he came out of nowhere. I was shocked, and now he's in the main event at Bellator 293, and that is the very dangerous but the very badass himself, Daniel James. And next week, Monday, Julius Anglikas. We have him starting up on the show. We're going to be dropping an interview with him. I'm telling you. And in between that, we got some football here because, we got to get talking NFL draft. And I got some, can't spill it yet, but I got some guys going to be talking NFL free agency, NFL draft. You know what? Just because the Super Bowl is over does not mean that football is over. So I got to keep up with this whole stuff here.
That's what I'm talking about. Football never ends.
Hell yeah, just ask the XFL, man. Next thing you know, you're going to have High Hater come back. Like I say, I had a good weekend. Shout out the Lights Out Championship. Shout out to everybody that came out and checked out those fights. And yes, a nut shot hurts. Until next time and in the in-between time, make sure you're checking out Michigan's Finest. Make sure you're checking out G3 Payroll and Tax. And make sure that you guys are contributing positively to the state of pro wrestling. Until next time and in the in-between time, hit that motherfucking subscribe button and make sure you're back here Thursday night, 9 p.m. I heard there might be a kaiju sighting in this bitch. Peace.